Matthew woke up with a start, his heart pounding and his body aching from the cold, hard ground. The fog had thinned, replaced by the first light of dawn creeping over the horizon. He blinked, trying to piece together what happened, but the memory was a blur of fear and confusion. The last thing he recalled was the Narano's voice, sweet and terrifying, pulling him into the darkness. He looked down. The gravel beneath him was undisturbed. No sign of the struggle. He was sure had cured. His legs, which he remembered being ensnared by the creature's coils, were free and unmarked. It was as if nothing happened at all. But Matthew knew better. What's that sound? The lingering dread in his chest told him it was all too real. As he struggled to his feet, something caught his eye. His flashlight lying a few feet away. He picked it up. It's weighing oddly, reassuring in his hand. The beam was dim, flickering weakly before it died altogether. With a sigh, Matthew pocketed it and made his way back to the gas station. His mind racing, he needed to make sense of what had happened, but first he needed coffee. Strong coffee. The station was eerily quiet when he stepped inside. The familiar hum of fluorescent lights, it was gone, replaced by an unsettling silence. Matthew frowned and glanced around. The place looked different, almost untouched, as if no one had ever set foot inside in years. Dust coated the countertops, and the shelves were lined with expired products. His stomach twisted. How long had he been out? He moved towards the counter. Before he could reach it, the door swung open with a jarring clang, causing him to jump. A man stepped inside, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a thick coat and a look of confusion. He glanced around the station before his eyes landed on Matthew. "Hey, do you work here?" the man asked, his voice gruff. "Yeah," Matthew replied, though the words felt strange in his mouth. "I mean, I do. What's going on?" The man narrowed his eyes. "You don't know there's been talk of strange things happening out here. Folks have been disappearing. I came to check it out myself." "Disappearing?" Matthew repeated. His pulse quickened to the memory of the Narano's voice in his mind. "Name's Ray," the man continued, extending his hand. "Ray Mitchell, private investigator. I was hired to look into it." Matthew shook his hands, feeling the collapse grip. "Matthew Hendricks, I saw something last night. I think it was..." "Narano?" Ray interrupted, his expression. Matthew froze. "How did you know? How did you know?" "You're not the first," Ray said, cutting him off. "There's been reporting sightings of a woman serpent that they say she's luring men away, never to be seen again." "Then why am I still here?" Matthew's voice trembled. Ray looked at him, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "That's what we need to figure out. But first, we need to get out of here. This place, it's not right. Before Matthew could respond, the door creaked open again, and a woman stepped inside, her eyes widened with fear. She was young, maybe in her early 20s, with dust-heaved hair and clothes that looked like she'd been running through the woods. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "She's coming." Ray moved towards her, his hand resting on the gun holster at his side. "Who's coming? The Norano?" The man nodded, her face pale. "She's out there. I can barely escape." She nodded again. She's watching us." Matthew's stomach dropped. "Watching us? What do you mean?" The woman's eyes darted to the windows. Her breath quickened. "She's not alone. There are others I saw in the fog, watching, waiting." Ray cursed under his breath. "We need to move now." But as they turned toward the door, a figure appeared in the doorway. A man, his face obscured by shadows. His presence sent a chill down Matthew's spine. The man stepped inside, his movements unnaturally smooth, almost like he was gliding. His eyes were black, void of any humanity, and his lips curled into a smile that sent shivers down Matthew's spine. "Leaving so soon?" the man asked, his voice smooth and cold. Ray drew his gun, aiming it at the man. "Who are you?" The man's smile widened. "I'm a friend of the Norano, and you, Ray Mitchell, are not welcome here." Before Ray could react, the man lunged at him with inhuman speed, knocking the gun from his hand. Matthew barely had time to react as the man turned on him, his eyes burning with malice. But before the man could reach him, the woman screamed, her voice piercing the air. The man froze, his head snapping towards her. "You!" he hissed. "You are supposed to be mine." The woman backed away, her eyes filled with terror. No, please." Matthew's instincts kicked in. He grabbed a metal pipe from behind the counter, swinging it at the man with all his strength. The impact sent the man spiraling, but he quickly recovered, his eyes blazing with fury. "You'll regret that," the man snarled, advancing it on Matthew. But before he could strike, the sound of a distant well echoed through the fog outside. The man hesitated, his expression faltering. The well grew louder, more insistent, and the man's face twisted in fear. "No, not now," he said, backing away. "She's coming." The man turned and fled into the fog, disappearing as quickly as he had faded into the distance, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Ray retrieved his gun, his hands shaking slightly. "We need to get out of here before she comes back. There's a safe house nearby. We can regroup there." Matthew nodded, his mind racing. What about the others, the ones who are watching us? Ray glanced at the woman who was still trembling with fear. We'll deal with them later. Right now, survival is our only priority. They made their way to the door, the fog closing in around them, living like a living thing. As they stepped outside, Matthew couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The eyes of an unseen watchers seemed to follow them, their presence a constant weight on his shoulders. As they disappeared into the fog, Matthew knew one thing for certain. This was the beginning. The Noranu wasn't just a creature of legend. She was real, and she wasn't alone. The Watchers were out there, waiting for their moment to strike, and Matthew was trapped in the middle of all of it. To be continued.